Hi there. Thanks for joining us today. Zach and Jim here of Fantasy for the Ages, the father and son podcast, talking about fantasy, sci fi, and other nerdy content we enjoy. We're here
Correct.
today with a book blast, a spoiler free 5 minutes or less reaction to something Zach has read. We're talking about Heroes Die, book one of the Acts of Caine, which I have not read. So, again, you're safe, spoiler free. If you enjoy this episode, like it, subscribe to our channel, see everything else we have out there, and you won't miss a thing. Zachary,
So
why did you read this book?
this one was recommended to me by Drew McCaffrey, a friend of ours that does some wonderful content himself. And he recommended this series, Matthew Stover being one of his favorite living authors. And it holds up. It's good. I've not read the whole series yet. I'm currently reading the second book in this series. But this first book, Heroes Die, is what we're here to talk about. This is equal parts a fantasy book and a sci-fi book, but not a sci-fi fantasy book necessarily. It's just like both those parts, and a socioeconomic political commentary.
That almost made my head hurt. What?
This feels like a Brave New World or Fahrenheit 451 that I actually enjoyed. It hits a lot of those kinds of comments and concepts and allegory and greater things, while still being a very entertaining fantasy and sci-fi book.
So this is not a shallow book.
No. That being said, it could be read relatively shallowly, and you'll still get some of the depth without it. It's in your face, but there's more to it as well. And for being a relatively straightforward story, there's a lot of complex themes.
I don't know much of anything about it. Can you introduce just the premise of the story?
Very brief premise. Earth as we know it exists in a future that is more or less corporation run with a whole caste system, and they develop technology that will get them to another reality that's kind of out of phase with this one that they call Overworld, and that is a place where physics is different and there's magic and there's whole other races and peoples and things. And what they did with that was decide, we're gonna train people to go over there and pretend to be like they're there and go on adventures, and we will record their experiences so that you can live their experiences through POV as entertainment.
Interesting. Now that has vibes of Westworld built into it. If you watched Westworld on HBO,
I have.
And am I accurate in just saying there's some vibes of it there?
Some vibes. I'd say, yeah, there's some vibes.
Wow.
As the Acts of Caine specify kind of here, a lot of this is following our main protagonist, Caine, which is his character name. It's not his name. Kind of.
It's really interesting. That was a good intro, because that made me want to read the book. It is on my TBR. It's just a ways down. I predict I'll get to it this year, but I do have Malazan coming up next. So,
and the big thing is there are often conflicts and problems both on Overworld and on Earth that our heroes have to navigate to accomplish what they're trying to do in the face of resistance on both ends.
And sometimes heroes die.
Correct.
It's kind of a gimme,
I will give one word of caution. This is not grimdark per se, but there is some very descriptive, I think, Conan the Barbarian-esque violence.
Okay.
To where if a description of a brutal act is going to turn you off from a story, maybe
not your thing.
Maybe hesitate to read this. It's not the focus of the story and content, but it is prevalent. Language is also definitely adult.
Got it. Don't read it to your 5-year-old.
Correct.
Perfect. All right. Great introduction. Great reaction. Thank you, Zach. You made me want to read the book.
Good.
Maybe you did that for some of our listeners. That's all we got. We'll talk to you next time.